So please welcome Mari to the show. Welcome, Mari.
Hi, everyone. And
From
hi, people who
Brazil.
watch me. Yeah,
You
from
what?
Brazil.
All the way from Brazil. It's 90 degrees in February when I'm in San Diego and it's like 40 degrees. So there we go. Very much polar opposite. So let me get to where I found you on Instagram. And you're
Okay.
beautiful and you're 23 years old. And I'm looking at you because it's mesmerizing on how you talk and how you do your videos on Instagram. So here I go. And everyone knows me on this show. I go down the rabbit hole. So I'm on Mari's rabbit hole. And
Okay.
I just really was like, who is this young, beautiful Brazilian? And what is like, it made me realize like where we're going in this world and who's coming out of the woodwork. Like, and there you are coming out and just starting to share your message. However, I want to go a little bit before we get to this magic that you've discovered. When you broke up with the boyfriend, you had your Kundalini experience.
Yeah,
Let's
I'll
go
tell you
there.
about my story then. I'll share
Okay.
it. I think the fact about being very young, that has to do with the generations in the ascension, the indigos, the crystals, and then the rainbow children, which is the generation that I feel I belong in. Probably your kids as well.
They're rainbow too.
It was around the year 2000. I'm from 1999. So
Okay.
if it's after, that's very likely because it's like a mixture of indigos and crystal. So that's why the new kids that enter the world, they're kind of like, you could say they already go in the next level naturally because it's their natural frequency. So I think that the fact that people are waking up younger has to do with that. And that includes me being 23. But yeah, my spiritual journey begins when my first boyfriend broke up with me. That was in 2018, like the end of 2018. And my best friend, who called herself a witch, told me to go look into the law of attraction and spirituality books, but it wasn't for a good purpose. It was to get him back because I wanted to attract him back. So we were like over the phone, like two girls just, gossiping and like, okay, now we're going to do this spell to get him back. So that was kind of how we started. But then it turns out that I really took it seriously. And I was reading book after book. There's a bunch of books here, and like the third floor and then the fourth floor here of books. And it was when I saw my twin flame cross my life, that's what triggered the Kundalini experience for me. And I would say that was the checkpoint that really made me advance into the psychic realms, because prior to that, I couldn't really feel much. But that experience, have you heard of it? The Kundalini awakening?
Yes, I've interviewed people that have had that experience. And
have you had it?
No, but I'm like, I want that. Who doesn't want that?
I mean, there are some times that you tell yourself, like, why did I ask for it? Because it's so intense and it's so much energy in this psychic area that you just question yourself, like, why did I ask for this? So there's a pace. That's what I believe in. Like, if you want it, then I feel like it's in the cards for you. But then there's a reason why it hasn't happened yet, just like for everybody else who wishes for it. There are even monks who prepare like lives and lives for it because you have to clear energy. So that's really when I started to feel psychic. I've had like how it exploded for me, because people describe it as snakes coming up from your spine. That was really it. I felt like a tingling coming up, and then this huge claustrophobia, because when there's still like a lot of density, you feel fear, all of the anxiety coming up. So I had a panic attack. I've never had anything before in my life, no mental diagnosis ever. And then boom, all of a sudden, panic attack. That was the first wave, the root chakra wave. And then I had the heart chakra wave, all triggered by my twin flame being in my life. And then I'm going through the throat chakra wave. So it's like a process that keeps going on.
But you know what's going on because you've done your reading and you know this is the Kundalini.
Well, in the beginning, I didn't know what was going on. Like some people who have the experience, they simply freak out. Like they just have this energy coming up and they have no idea how to control it, because it's so, first of all, non-scientifically proven. So you might get sent to a psychiatrist and they'll tell you they have a bunch of problems. So a lot of the kind of mental issues, they have to do with spirituality, but a lot of times psychology doesn't consider the spiritual realm as valid, or it will stop as a belief. So it stops in the mental field, but not as something that is prior to the psychic, like the psyche itself. So it's very hard in the beginning when you have no idea what's going on, and then science doesn't back it up. But as you transmute the energy, you become lighter and more grounded. That's a very important point, you know, when we clear all of the pain that's stuck, and then we can be embodied in our bodies. So that's what it is, the Kundalini energy. It breaks all of the patterns kind of all at once. It sends like a really strong force for you to start purifying that. That's why I wouldn't wish it kind of before it's supposed to happen, because you could go nuts like that. A lot of people go into psychiatry wards because of it.
Huh. So when you said, so I was listening to you talk about, you know, the root chakra, it starts there and it goes up, but your all the trauma, all the wounds are in each chakra. That's just like, it's like a shooting missile coming through and cleaning that up to awaken your psychic abilities. And that's when you started to experience this whole different,
a lot of clairvoyance.
A lot of clairvoyance. That's right.
Clairvoyance, connection with my spirit team, guides coming online, feeling angels around me. Because what happens is that your body has this upgrade in DNA. So the Kundalini awakening, it catalyzes the third strand. So you start feeling consciousness, because we know that everything vibrates. So there's information everywhere moving around. Frequency carries information. So our bodies hold all of that information. So what happens is that your physical body can now sense this consciousness that is invisible, and you start reading these things that are extrasensory, you know, beyond the five senses, basically.
Explain to me when you first started like sensing your spirit guides, and how you, because you explained that really in a totally different way than I've ever heard. Angels and spirit guides, and how you have to meet them halfway and you have to talk to them. And
okay, you've watched like my material content before. Yeah. The thing is, like, when you're in a very low frequency, nothing in alignment comes to you, because you're misaligned from within. So when I say that I had to meet my spirit team halfway, it's because I had to raise my frequency to a point that I was able to really catch it clearly. So you kind of have to transcend, go beyond the fourth dimension. There's still negatives and positives. And then you go into this clear, subtle realm of information that you can just read stuff. So it just takes more time of you preparing yourself to get there, instead of kind of wishing for it.
Right.
It's like having a very healthy day, meditating, making sure you stay away from low vibrational frequencies, integrate everything. Because if you're just dense, it's as much as you might want it, your body is holding all of that low frequency. It's just not possible in terms of quantum physics, in terms of physics. It doesn't resonate.
Right. So you work on getting your vibration to that, past that fourth dimension, doing meditation. Cause I was just reading the MAPS course, your way on
Cool.
meditation, and how you describe that, and how it's kind of I don't know if it's it explains it as a beginner, like if someone was going to read that and they never meditated before, you really make that super clear and understanding of why it works, and the senses. And
I'm glad you liked it.
I did. I loved it. In fact, I was like, I need to send that to everybody, because it kind of, I'm a huge proponent of meditation. And when I understand and listen to you explain to me, like, because, like I know that all throughout the last 3 years that I've had this podcast, it's just been this progression, right? And now all of a sudden there's like all these people talking about the ascension, the next the dimensions, the 3D, 4D, 5D. You talk about 7D, and let's go there, because that, when you talk about getting from like the third dimension, which we're all in the same place, we're not going anywhere,
exactly,
and that's muddy. Because I've never talked about the seventh dimension yet.
So, okay, let's kind of go from where the ascension started. From all of the material that I've explored and things that I've channeled, received, I believe that the ascension really was kickstarted after the Second World War. That's when the indigo wave started to come in. And those are more rebellious spirits, people that are going to question institutions, the ones that really are more active and more explosive people. Then came the crystal children that are more like that person that was always socially awkward, could never fit in, and wanted to stay home, self-isolate because they're so sensitive. So with the rainbow generation now, with the year 2000 and this mix, I think people are getting into these newer levels. And when we talk about the seventh dimension, for example, that's simply something beyond the fifth, but it's not like we should give a lot of emphasis in terms of like, where is it? I want to reach it. I think it happens naturally because, you know, after the third strand is catalyzed, there comes the fifth, and then you jump straight to the 12th. So you kind of keep going into this multidimensionality, and it's hard to track where exactly you're going. But the seventh, that would be where we go into being disembodied, so out of body, just the light body. And we still have access to that. But it's crazy because it's also unpolarized. That's when the masculine and the feminine really fuse. And when I had that activation, it was so confusing because it felt like I was hit by lightning. You get the descending current. We have the ascending current, that is the Kundalini going up, so that is feminine. And then coming down the descending current, that is the masculine energy that keeps us embodied and grounded and oriented towards the human game. So reaching the seventh dimension, it doesn't feel like anything different. It feels like a lot of blissful energy. That's the sensation. And then you kind of have an inversion in your polarity to have like an activation. So I went into the more masculine of me and then into the more feminine. And now with the throat, those are coming into balance. You know, we experience all of these different adventures so that we can get all of the complete activations.
Oh, geez, you're like to the next level. Oh my gosh, you're amazing.
But I don't think I am. I just honestly, I think people are really into dimensions, and the ascension topic is gaining force, but I've actually been laying like really low key at this point, more oriented towards human life. And to me, the most important thing is always love. You know, if you can love in life or just learn how to feel love, that's what's going to get you into the next game, because the heart chakra is the one in the middle that bridges everything, the non-physical and the physical. So if you don't have that feel, like if you've been denied that in childhood, that's why parenting, I resonated so much with that episode. It's so important. So if you can have that, know how to feel that, then you can catapult yourself further. If not, then it's so hard because it's like the door to the bridge is closed.
Right. Well, you talk a lot about, you know, being in the present moment. You know, I know there's no future. It's all happening right now. And how you were talking in one thing I was listening to about, you know, having a baby, you know, like, well, that, so, you know, I started to process that because, you know, I was always wanting a baby. And I was like, that's like my dream. I want a baby. I didn't meet my husband until I was 35. But I'd always like, I'd go to psychics and say, am I going to have babies?
Oh my God, so cool. I want to be a mother too.
But, you know, but you were talking about like, explain that, because the way you describe that, because that's a great way to describe time.
Your wishes, you mean?
Yeah.
The thing about like, there is a future, but there isn't a future. So okay, let's start with the multidimensional game. Here in the third dimension, we see things as linear. So there are people that only exist there. So they literally live the 9 to 5, and they don't understand that there's something beyond that. But that's still real because we're in the collective society. So for example, we booked this podcast for like 5 p.m. for me and midday for you. That works. So time is real like that, linearly. But escaping that, then you can start entering the quantum world in which the past, present, and future, they coexist, but they're not all happening exactly in this present moment together. They're superpositioned in the quantum field. So the past has already physically happened, your history. Those things have happened, but you can rearrange the timelines and the energy by reassigning meaning. That's what therapy attempts to do, or, you know, people with emotional work do. So you get the parts that are fragmented and you reintegrate them. But it's the same with the future. But the different thing from the past and the future to me is that the past has already been written like that, you know, set in stone physically, your history. But with the future is possibility. So you're always playing with probabilities, and every wish that you have tethers you to that timeline. And when you're able to connect to that version of you that is superpositioned in the now, because all of those three coexist, you can bring that energy here, and you're able to, I'm going to say, manifest but I prefer, I also saw that you said something about manifesting and creating, and I'm more about creating my life and naturally manifesting things. Because
Right.
when you're able to get that frequency and you embody that and you clear it in your body, that has been created already. You know, you have already constructed the solid base, and then it's just the course is set for it to
Right.
manifest. It's all within divine timing. So working like that from the future, talking to my future versions when I meditate, to my past versions, to the version of me of when I'm about to die and I'm in bed in the hospital, and saying to myself, like, in the present moment, you have already done everything and you need it. So like focus on this, and you start receiving this information that is real, but that is still, let's say, floating in realms that are invisible to the eyes.
Right. In the time, when you talk about timelines, is that, how do you describe that? Like different timelines where you can
Hmm.
be, you know, with still with that boyfriend, having that experience, not
Mhm.
having the Kundalini.
So imagine the possibilities and tethered with the wishes that we just described here. Well, that contains an entire story and it can play out a certain way. That would be a timeline. And I see a timeline, imagine just a line floating and it's now entering the time of third dimension, where there's the 9 to 5. That's a timeline, and that's a timeline being anchored. It's like a storyline that can play out.
Tell me about
Like
your
when we
higher
say the
self.
ascension timelines, the possibilities.
Right. What about your higher self? Explain your higher self.
The higher self, to me, that's exactly the body that sits in the 7th dimension, and it's beyond time, so it's very universal. And for me, you actually feel it more, but that's the sensation that I have. I feel it more in my soul instead of getting messages from it. I get messages from my spirit team, from angels, but with my higher self, it's like, it's just more of a feeling the soul vibrating and just following it through intuition. So it's a more embodied experience for me instead of a psychic one. It's more like it's locked in the heart.
Mm-hmm. But that's how you decipher your intuition versus your higher self, and what you're listening, what that voice is.
I think that when it comes to psychic abilities like that, and that's a very common question that people have, like, how do I know it's me, or like my ego? That's like the typical question, like my ego versus my intuition. That's because the person's still like residing within a lot of density. So the more subtle you become from within, the more you can tell, like, with clarity, what frequency is what and where it's coming from. So it's like in my mind, I just had this blank space. And to me, like, how my psychic abilities work is that I just read frequency as if it were like a line floating around. So it's like, if I see this image, oh, this is my clairvoyance. Or if it's more inside of my brain, like, this is me actively thinking. Or like when I'm receiving something, this is me passively receiving something. So you kind of develop this subtlety to distinguish what is what. And the
Right.
higher self, it's like, for me, it only happens, you know, the messages from my higher self, they only come in moments of distress, like very decisive moments, because, you know, it's not going to spoil your life for you in the sense of giving you a spoiler. That's not the purpose. Like, it would defeat the entire purpose of you exploring yourself.
Right. Gosh. So when you talk about frequency and vibration,
Hmm.
there's, we talk a lot about vibration and a lot about frequency, and a lot of people kind of put the two together, but you talk about how different they are.
Mm-hmm. To me, frequency is the information inside the vibration. I literally tried to read so many quantum physics books to try to decipher exactly what it is, but I'm still waiting on the day that a scientist has a Kundalini awakening to explain these concepts even better. So to me, frequency is the thing that carries the information, and vibration is what spreads it when we're able to embody that frequency. And those two together are electromagnetism.
Right. And
Because
that's
there's the
when,
entire thing in quantum physics that, like, they can't travel separately, or fields and magnetic fields. Like, there's all of these quantum theories that I just prefer the practical part, which means, like, grab the information and embody that, and then you're vibrating it and generating energy.
right, exactly. And I'm getting closer to that understanding, and I use that. But when you talk about getting, having the Kundalini, now
Mhm.
you're opening your clairvoyance. You want to have, you're starting to, the Arterians are the people that
Mhm.
you really connect with, that
Mhm.
galactic. Why do
Yeah,
you know,
my
why
star
is that?
system.
Your
Mhm.
star system is the Arterians.
Yeah, Arcturians.
Arcturian, sorry.
Mhm.
Will you talk about that? Because I've had people on here that talk about the Galactic Federation of
The
Light.
Galactic
Yeah, the
Pleiadians.
Palladians, all that.
Okay. Oh yeah, basically there are different star systems because the starseed community has been growing. Many of the souls who volunteered are from other planets. I'm sure you probably believe that if
Right.
people
If
here
we're
talking
listening
about
here.
these things. So
But you
after the second,
volunteered, right? You are a
yeah,
volunteer.
you probably volunteered too. That's something that you can,
Right.
you just feel. 'Cause sometimes people ask like, oh, ask a psychic, like confirm this to me, but they should just really be like feeling into their heart to know, like.
Exactly.
And so when the ascension was kickstarted after the Second World War, these three waves of volunteers started to come in. They were from all types of different places. And the Arcturians, they are very intelligent. They're more oriented towards deciphering complexity and ideas and concepts. The Pleiadians, for example, they might be more emotional or more relatable. Like a lot of celebrities, it is said, I'm not sure, it is said that they resonate within the Pleiadian systems. Orion, for example, are said to be more rebellious. They had more of this a war story going on. So every star system carries characteristic traits, kind of like, imagine like different countries with different cultures.
Right.
That's kind of like the vibes. And Arcturians are just very kind of like spiritual nerds, like engineering nerds that just want to investigate everything and understand how everything works and all of the mechanisms of energies, while other star systems would be more oriented towards like physical healing, more like touch. There's everything in spirituality. People
Right.
for all types of works.
But how do you know that you're part of that star
That was
system?
only revealed to me after the Kundalini experience, because you start having a gravitation. It's not like a yes and no. It's more like everything about your life starts getting flooded with that type of consciousness. And then one day I was like seeing this blue lights in my clairvoyance, and it just wouldn't leave me. And that's when I started to really channel those messages. And I knew that it wasn't coming from me, because I couldn't possibly know those things about spirituality or the ascension. So that's when you know that you're in contact. But everybody has their confirmation story. For me, it was all about just when I'm in resonance with something, my entire life gives me signs for it. And it's just like flooding my subconscious and my life and everything and my dreams. In the Kundalini process, I've had dreams about snakes all the time because, well, that's the symbol for it. So it was the same with the Arcturians. I was gravitating towards that material. I have a few books, and I don't resonate with other star systems.
So
are you
there now, part of your soul?
That's a great question. I believe so, but I believe that we can be in many places at once. We're just not consciously, when we're embodied during daylight, we just don't know that. And it's supposed to keep us grounded.
Right.
So I do believe that part of my soul is there that is transmitting me with the information.
Right. And what about what about your dreams? Are you astral traveling back to there? What do you do? What is your dreams like?
My dreams are very adventurous, and they're more like inner child dreams. Sometimes I dream a lot about being in water parks or like doing like skydiving or these crazy adventures. I don't know why, like those are just my dreams. A lot of them are messages. So if I dream about a specific person or specific situation, then obviously that means that I have to meditate about that situation, because there are like lessons there. So it's just like any other dreams for people. But astral projections, I'm not a huge fan. I'm more into going to the celestial fields and having encounters with souls that I know are meant to be my tribe or like my twin flame. So to me, that feels much lighter.
Tell me about your twin flame. You've mentioned it a couple of times. It's not the boyfriend you broke up with.
No, the first boyfriend was a karmic. And then my twin flame, we're in separation. I have a boyfriend. Like it's actually my boyfriend's birthday today. Like that is not my twin flame, but it feels more like a soulmate vibe. So my twin flame crossed my life, and it was just, do you have a twin flame?
I don't know.
You don't know? It was just this astronomical energy. Like I couldn't breathe. It would give me anxiety. It was so intense, and it was so much love underlying, but I didn't know that it was love. It was only when he left my life that I encountered this channel called Twin Flame Revolution by Dove and Nicole. it's funny because Nicole actually follows me like today. And when I
Oh,
started, like she didn't. So that type of thing is really like cool. And that's when I started to again resonate with all of that energy, that content, and just everything was about twin flames by then, like for me. So that's when you know that you're in resonance with something. You don't need like a psychic to confirm, like, oh, you're from like the Pleiadians, or like, oh, you have a twin flame. It's all about like resonance. So you have to trust,
right.
people have to trust themselves with their own like deliverance to tell, this resonates with me, like this is in my field, it's like in my aura, it's gravitating, I'm magnetizing that.
Right.
And then there were like a few kind of like, he enters my life, leaves my life, I see him at a party and then don't see him at a party. But our like polarization is so strong that I don't feel like he's supposed to be in my life right now. So it's just like, we didn't even date. It was more like a pre-dating to the pre-dating, because I feel like in the United States people already start dating like immediately, like boy grabs the hand, like the girl's hand, and it's like we're dating. But in Brazil it's like people are too slutty for that, like that doesn't happen.
Oh, funny. I just can't imagine who would you date? Because you're so beyond I mean, they'd have
Mm.
to be super into what you are, I would think, to be able to have a conversation. Like if you went out to dinner with someone and he just sat there and stared at you with this like glaze of eyes and he just went, everything you said was like right over his head.
That's a great like topic, because I know there was a time for me that it was very hard to kind of find somebody that I was interested in, like a guy that actually said and was like, okay, I actually want to stay close because something adds to my life. And I think that's when you're still like in a period that you have to be by yourself. I know that's a struggle for a lot of people in like the spiritual awakening movements, in the ascension. But the guy that I'm currently with, he's not spiritual, like he's not necessarily spiritual, he does yoga, like, so he is like I don't know, I just pull in a lot of like entrepreneurs, like business guys vibe, probably because it's more masculine energy, and like with the spirituality is a lot of feminine energy, so that's kind of like complementary. So the person isn't necessarily spiritual, it's more like adds to my life in a way, in points that I'm not as good.
Yeah, I
Whoever
love that.
needs to be in my life, they add in their way, as much
Right.
as long as there's love. Again, like it comes back to the love, as long as you can love, to me, like the spirituality isn't really needed. There's
Right.
people who have no spirituality. I feel like a lot of grandmothers, and they're so wise and they just love and they're so like nourishing, they don't necessarily know a thing about ascension, they're just like a good human spreading love.
Right. Totally. I love that. And we were talking about your book, Ascension
Mm.
Penurial. What is it called?
Ascensionpreneuring.
Ascension Penurial. Let's go there. Let's talk about this book. This you wrote, amazing at your age. You just
Have
one
you
day said, I'm
have
going
you
to write
read
a
it?
book. No, I haven't
What?
read it. I wish I
Oh, okay.
usually do, and then I'm behind. But I did read what it was about and I did look at it.
Well, it was something that just happened. I didn't think that it was gonna happen, but like with other spiritual projects, like the MAPS course, it was just information being given to me. And at this point, like I'm just laying low with projects. I'm just doing sessions. So thank God, because it was such an intense period. But I felt like it was important for me to put it out for the people who follow me, because it's an entire vibe of how you can navigate your own spirituality and really kind of embody what I feel like I'm good at. It's kind of taking the entrepreneurship vibes, the whole like, let's go get it, or because I used to read books about that a lot, and taking that to the spiritual fields. And it's more like, how can you really advance instead of like procrastinating or stalling with this attitude, because a lot of people, they just kind of remain in the same place. And like for me, that's, how can you do that? Like I can't even remain with the same like stuck energy for 2 days, and people stay for like 2 weeks, 2 months with the same issue.
Or
So I
2
just wanted to give that
decades.
vibe. True.
But I'm the same way as you. I'm really good about, I always tell everyone, just say yes, whatever,
Mm.
just start saying yes. And I do that in my life. I always am like, there's some inspired thought and I'm like, that
Mhm.
must be something. I feel they're in resonance with me when it feels in
That's when
resonance.
something's in alignment, when it's an
Yes.
inspired action. That's like, oh, your soul is saying yes, go. If you were like totally misaligned, you would feel like completely uninspired, no reason to even move. So that's how I also like tell with along with logical deliberation, that's how I know that something's in alignment with my soul as well.
Right. Were you really smart in school? Like, were you a straight A student?
Mm, no, like I actually only really liked English, Spanish, and geography. Like I was a good student, like I was very consistent, but especially at college, definitely started to not care. Like
Let's talk about that because I have my two girls. They're 14 and 16 in high school, or one's in high school, one will be next year. Talking about college, looking at the ascension. I have a course that I teach teenagers and parents that I think is so necessary because I feel like the school systems are they basically teach, I'm 54, what I learned when I was, we need some upgrading. And, and I know my girls are where you're talking, like they're this rainbow, they're way ahead of this, like all this stuff at school that they're learning they have no interest. And it's just, I feel like I'm dropping them off for 7 hours to babysit. Like we could be home talking to you. Like that would be the best school.
I mean, that reminds me of how there's so much like the attention deficit thing going on right now. Those are just souls that are more advanced and they don't care about like the matrixy, the 3D matrixy unconsciousness programming going on. So it's like such a topic right now. Like apparently all kids these days have attention deficit, but it's because their souls like don't care anymore about being indoctrinated with things that are like so outdated. And I think that like the difficult thing is kind of bridging even work life or academic life, if you're like a kid, with the spiritual, because with society is still very much in the 3D. So it would be like so unrealistic in a way if everybody just sat around and talked about like spirituality all day and, nobody worked, because the jobs that people are still valuing, they're still, outdated. It all depends on what people want. That's just like law of demand and, the supply. I actually did study like economics for a while. So like, to understand like the matrix and the system. And that's the issue. It's like to be able to keep your spirituality in such a dense place, in such a dense system. And then we empower ourselves so that we can go there like Neo in the Matrix or like Trinity and, disrupt it and change for the better by demanding things.
Right. So in the next 10 years, one of your videos said I think it was 2020 that you were talking, it was in 2024 is when you see this like really big wake up. I mean, that's not far along now.
Yes, I think the ascension timelines, timelines always change. So something that is today, if there's like a huge event, they might switch. And there was a huge event, like the pandemic thing, et cetera, changed a lot of the timelines. That was the perfect opportunity for people to start checking out the contrast and waking up. So what we're going to have like in the short term, from what I can channel, is massive disclosure. Like all of this contrast was for people to realize like, hello, like it's in front of your face. Like this system is literally like telling you how flawed it is and you can't even see it. So for people who are already awakened, the ascension is only going to accelerate. Frequency is accelerating. And what that means is that we just need to be feeling our feelings. That's the practical work, the emotional work. And for the ones who are unawakened and they might not wake up in this lifetime, it's just going to feel like more anxiety and then more numbing mechanisms. That's the 3D 5D split.
When you say feel your feelings, explain that, like you're feeling this way, feel it. It's all, like I interviewed somebody, Lori Ladd, and she always is about.
Oh yeah, Lori.
Yeah.
I follow her.
Yes. And same thing with her. Like I was watching her one day and I was like, oh my gosh, just like I did with you. But she talks about the feelings, like you just got to feel. Is that what you mean? Is that what you're talking about?
To me, like if you can feel love and if you know how to feel and along with knowledge, because that's the thing, people, you're too much in the mental field, in the spiritual community or anywhere. It's just a lot of information, but nothing really being done with it. So, because for a frequency to be changed in your body, you really have to take it to the emotional factory, is what I call it.
Right.
That's where the energy will actually change its frequency, when you're able to feel it and then reassign meaning. So that's where the knowledge part would be important. It's both thinking and feeling, but people think a lot and they can acquire a lot of information, but they barely know how to feel. I think it's funny because Americans, for us Brazilians, are very cold people. Brazilians, they're so emotionally driven. Like people are so like Latino people, you know, just kind of like feeling the vibes all the time. Like they're so kind of like warm. So for me, it was always easy to feel my feelings, like such a sensitive person. And I think that, you know, that's where the practice is. It doesn't matter how much you read if you're not able to sit in your chair and connect with the thing that's in your body, the frequencies that are there, because otherwise you're just going to be like accumulating stuff, but it's not changing the frequency. It's
Right.
only when you can combine thinking and feeling that you're able to, with that intention of healing, cure yourself, you know, heal yourself like that by feeling the pain and then adding love to it. To me, the love part is important because that's the zero. It goes back to the zero, you know,
Goes
like
back to the zero.
restarting.
Restart. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. When you talk about the 10 years from now and how we were talking before we push record and how you're watching the video on the children these days and what their life is going to be like. And, you know, I've had people on here. Do you know Andrew Genovese? Have you
No.
followed him? Okay. So he talks about like, you know, there's not going to be the grocery stores or the Targets. It's going to be all grown and we're going to live on this, you know, with the
Mhm.
farms, you know, how do you see that life? How do you see my
Oh,
life, my girls and
uh-huh.
and your
I
children's?
follow a lot of those. I follow like literally all topics in spirituality. So kind of like a bunch of conspiracy groups on Telegram. Like I'm there, like I'm reading
Oh,
everything.
well, yeah,
And
but you have
that's
so much
like the vibe.
information. Yes, but you're so
That's
hungry for that. You love it.
exactly. It's like, I mean, I just feel like I like to read a bit of everything because nobody's ever like right or wrong. It's just like their
Right.
version of their life
Exactly.
based on like their background. And that's just like the same for me. And people can resonate or not. That's
Right.
fine. So that's like a lot of going off grid that people are talking about, you know, kind of removing themselves completely from the system and like going into a place that you can like grow your own food, like have a house there, like with, I don't know, because I don't see that like for everyone, you know, everybody has like so personalized lives. And I live in a city, like I live in Sao Paulo. That would be like maybe the New York from Brazil, but like gray, like not as beautiful. And I don't see myself like moving out of here because you can still be spiritual, like in the city, like in very heavy, dense things. And I think that, yes, we are going to move towards a more organic life eventually with the ascension, but I don't see it happening that quick. I still think that, I think it's going to take incarnations.
You do.
It's just like I said, we've just kickstarted it. And, you know, what happens is that we have two versions, let's say many versions actually, but the 3D version of Earth here, and it's superpositioned with the 5D version. But those are dimensions of consciousness existing in the same space, in the same planet. So people are simply living different types of lives. And I do support so much of the organic, like smaller communities, more like less industrial, basically, like anything that is more organic. Obviously that's the path that we want to be headed, but then there's like the technology timelines, the AI timelines, the agenda timelines, you know, dark agenda timelines. So it's kind of like the intention of the volunteers, of the people who are really leading the ascension versus what's already going on in density, you know. You could say that's the spiritual war in the astral field going on.
Wow. Did you follow Dolores Cannon? Is that where you?
Yeah, oh my God, I love her. It's like my favorite.
Me too. Oh my gosh. Well, you're
The
talking
books
about the
are like
three,
up there.
right? Oh yeah. But the volunteers, you know, that's where I learned that from her. But I just, you know, I resonate with her so much. And I'm thinking there's just like I feel like when she's talking, it just really lights me up. Does she do that to you?
Literally, I feel like I started listening to her because it was such a relief to like get home from like such a dense environment. But then the lighter I became, like the less the environment bothers me, you know, a very heavy place. So she did have that effect on me as well. Like it was like a soul relief.
Yeah.
To know, like a very interesting, also like a lot of curiosities.
Do you feel like just saying that kind of made me think, you know, we're all a soul family. Like, you know, I'm drawn to you for some reason. Like this podcast is really like made me realize that too, when I get to have somebody on that
Mhm.
I couldn't wait for like the last 4 days. I was like, I cannot wait to have her on there. I'm so grateful I have this podcast. I get to
Mhm.
meet her and talk to her and hear her amazing knowledge and wisdom. And
Oh my God.
you just light me up. But I feel that way when I meet people where I feel
Mhm.
like, gosh, there has to be some kind of connection.
But there is, and it's all still based on resonance, and there's also like the guided encounters, like things that are in our divine blueprint. For example, me meeting my twin flame, things that are more orchestrated by the universe, but I feel like this is kind of like tribe vibes,
Right.
like finding your tribe, people that really resonate with the content. And some people might not even resonate, but it's more like you can exchange perspectives.
Right.
That's also important. That's why I go into like all types of topics, like the ones that are very discrediting everything that I can be saying, or like against everything that I believe, because I feel like that's important to exchange.
Yeah, for sure. Yes. Tell me about aliens.
Well, these star seeds, like all of the
Right.
extra planetary things, that's aliens. Like the Arcturians are aliens. I've totally believed that. I haven't had like those UFO experiences. I feel like that is more common. Like that was more common before. To me, like I just have the connection, but physically, nothing extremely crazy has happened.
But you do know that they're at that, and there's
Yeah,
some,
so like I feel I'm totally like not from here. Like oh yeah,
right.
there's also like the kids. Maybe this could be like the case for your kids, that some souls, they just incarnate without karma from past lives to do their mission. So it's just a lighter path. Like you just know, like I don't come here very often. That's why things are so light.
Huh. Explain that more. So could be like where my daughters don't have to go through a lot of trauma and rough,
Mhm,
because I always say, like, did you have a good childhood?
mhm.
Are you going to tell everybody when you get to be in like your 50s that you had an amazing childhood and what trauma did you, but so that means like you feel like they're just going to live a lighter life.
I mean, if that's like the case, because I can't tell, like you're the mother, and like I feel like they're gonna be the ones to tell whether they've had past lives here or not. I know I've had like during the Lemurian Atlantis period, but from that point, like on until now, linearly, it's just like a huge blank. Like maybe I've been like in the Arcturian system and like source, and that's it. Like,
Hmm.
because my life, like my spiritual progression, it was just too quick. Like for me, it was just too accelerated. So that's when, like Dolores talks about that as well, that a lot of souls, they incarnate karma free so that they can do their jobs here, like
Right.
the spiritual mission here. And I think that the parenting, it really has a lot of impact, obviously, when we're growing up. So my parents, I feel like they are a couple of twin flames. So I've always had like the love so much available, always felt so loved. And if you have that, then you can go anywhere. Like I said, it's the bridge. So your kids with you, like with this podcast, Super Spirituality, that's kind of the path of the new kids that are coming in, to awakened parents.
Right. Oh, believe me. Yeah, I'm in that world and I just see it all the time. And that's why I'm passionate. And I've had past lives where I've always been a teacher for kids,
Mm,
and I've always been like
so interesting.
been like like in jail, or like always saying the wrong, like parents mad at me, or
Mm,
the town that I lived in was like, I did something wrong to I helped their kids, and then they were
mhm,
healing without anything, and I was teaching them all these different ways to heal, and it became this. But I have over and over these past lives where I see that,
mm.
and so when I get to understand why I'm so passionate about these children and parenting,
Makes
and
sense. Mhm.
it just really like resonates, like you would
Uh-huh.
say. There's a resonance there with me. But I've seen
Have you
myself
have you
in,
done like a regression?
yes, and I've seen
That's
that.
interesting.
Yeah, I've really there, but what else I've learned is in the regressions is the ones that when you do one,
Mm.
you have so many, the ones that come are the ones that are going to relate to what this life right now is,
Mhm.
right? Explain
Exactly.
that.
For example, a friend of mine that's also into spirituality, she keeps saying like it might be that I've had past lives here, like from Atlantis, Lemuria until this point. It's just that I'm not supposed to know in this incarnation,
Right.
because I don't feel like I'm gonna incarnate here like again until like maybe the year 3000 or something. I always say that like as a joke, but
Why?
if you're
Why do
not
you say
supposed to
that?
know, I mean, it's just that's what makes sense, like to my soul. I think that, for example, the whole thing about having a Kundalini awakening, there are some things that they're so set, like everything about your life just it was like meant to be so much, like you've been so existential your entire life, like you've asked questions your entire life, like to a very, very like next level complexity degree,
Mhm.
that it's just like something that's in your soul plan and you just know. And it's the same with like whether I feel like reincarnating here or not. But obviously that's something that I'll decide later linearly.
Yeah, tell me how you view death.
It's just a transition from the physical, like we just leave the earthly field and then we go somewhere else, like with our light bodies.
Do you feel like we've chosen the way we're going to die before we come into this body?
Yeah, like major events that are like checkpoints or things that are very important. I do think those things are divinely guided. That's like from my experience, you know, from living so many of these events that were so magical and so like perfectly put together that I couldn't have architected that myself, like if I wanted to, out of my free will. Like there's just no way I could have strategized to that point because it was too perfect. So and obviously like just from studying things, Dolores Cannon material, all of the spiritual topics, a lot of people believe in that, but there are people that don't. You know, I think that we have to live by what really resonates with us and makes us feel lighter, makes us feel great.
Right. When you when you do your readings, because I was listening to you say something like the day you decided that you were going to start charging for readings and you got nervous, like this, you know, this, was it the worthiness of not knowing if people were going to come? How did that?
I don't know. I think that for a lot of, in the beginning, for a lot of spiritual people, especially when they have a lot of crystal energy as well, you feel like, I shouldn't be charging for this. But then you enter the matrix and you remind yourself that the world still runs on money as a basic currency. And that's, you know, that still represents value in a way. It's exchange value. And I just think that a lot of people, they just want to help for free, but then eventually they get to a point that you understand that you're depleting yourself because the world still runs on money. So maybe like in the year 3000, we'll have a different way to exchange, you know, activities or things to do. And in the beginning, it was just like that. It's because it was like my first experience doing things. And then I later understood that it was a lot of energy, too many psychic messages streaming in, like people crying, and that I had to be, well, naturally, like people pay for it.
Yeah, well, definitely. But
Because a lot of people cry.
They do?
Yeah,
Why?
like more than like 50% is just like emotional releases because you start saying something, like channeling something, and then like it just hits the person like in the spot that they needed to be touched to feel.
So it's not immediate. You're not bringing in dead people.
No.
You're just psychic.
No, I don't have that ability of dead people, and like I don't feel interested by it because that means like kind of taking over your body, and I don't like anything that kind of resembles like disembodiment.
How do you get into your psychic? Is it all the time, or do you have to do something?
It's about creating the context, just like raising the vibration. For example, if I go out and I drink a lot, and I don't know, if I smoke and do like heavy drugs or all those things, obviously my vibration is going to be like terrible.
Do you do that?
It's all about, no.
Like what?
It was like, no, it was like an example.
Okay.
I can go out and like casually like have a drink, but it's rare, you know. It's just, it doesn't really resonate much. But like heavy drugs, like no, and like smoking also like doesn't resonate.
Are you
So
into
it's
the
all about
plant medicine?
I haven't tried it. I feel like my guys keep telling me that if I do like go for like psychedelics, that's way too much. Because when you have the Kundalini experience, the psychedelics, they resemble that expansion of consciousness, of being connected to everything. So the Kundalini already does that so naturally that anything could really just overwhelm my nervous system for no reason and just give me like a, what's like the name? Like a panic attack for nothing.
Good.
But the point is, you kind of like gather all of the resources around to uplift yourself and to enter a state of alignment. Usually what I do is go for a run, because running or any cardio, that accelerates the molecules in your body. So now you have more active fire and, you know, prana, all of the flow of your body is moving physically. And then I meditate straight after for a few minutes, like maybe like 20 minutes or even less. And the Kundalini is up, because there's also breathing exercises to raise it. I really like the Joe Dispenza way of doing it, that you just, bring all of that
Yes.
fluid up. Okay, you've heard of it.
Yes, I do. I love it. But you do all that to get ready.
It was actually through the Joe Dispenza book that it was really easy for me to raise the Kundalini intentionally without it being like those crazy like kind of not like that I didn't want the waves of Kundalini, but it has a force of its own, like the Shakti force, the feminine force. It's just so out of your control that you just flow with it, but more intentionally to raise just for psychic use here in the third eye chakra. That's what I do. It's just breathing, the physical body, getting into movement, because it's just, getting the stagnant energy to get flowing. And the more you purify your body, the stuck energies, the more like that flow is more uninterrupted. So you just have more access to spiritual energy being around like all day long.
So you can get to that feeling of Kundalini if you can access that. Because I was interviewing someone, they said, oh, I just happened one time and I want that feeling again. But you get that when you.
That's the thing, like the waves, they exist because of that. A person has like a Kundalini explosion, and then they're going to be like in a period, maybe like a few weeks of very, very like high psychic activity and this Kundalini energy. I remember there were like 2 waves that I couldn't even eat. Like I was just drinking water because I felt like I was being fed by light all the time. So that was a very interesting experience. Yeah, it was very accelerated as well. And sometimes you don't sleep because there's so much energy. And then the wave will come down because it's for you to integrate stuff. That's why people don't have the full experience at once. It doesn't work. The body, it's too dense, it's too slow, and we're inhabiting this third dimensional physical body. So that's why, it has a wave and then it comes down. And that's for you to, integrate, like you were there sitting in a very high frequency energy to use that to transmute stuff so that the next wave can come. And eventually, once you've cleared a bunch of that baggage, then you can intentionally bring it up. But it's not like a Shakti wave, like boom. It's more like a controlled experience just to be psychic, because you don't want to be in that state like all day long. It's like you have to lower the energy before sleep. Otherwise, like you don't sleep.
Right. What is your day like? What if do you have clients like throughout the day? How do you do that?
Actually, the spiritual things, they're like my side hobby, and I work with human resources. So I do have I like to keep my life like very 9 to 5-ish, because I feel like that's more relatable to people. If I'm going to be like sharing how to survive or thrive in the matrix, then I want to be a person that's very inserted in it. And that's what's in the cards for me right now. Maybe it'll change. Like when I'm 50, maybe I'll be solely doing sessions, but that doesn't resonate. Like I remember during a vacation that I did sessions every single day. It was like so exhausting and so much psychic energy, like didn't really make sense. So my life is very, I'll always include exercise. I try to do it daily, eating very healthy foods as much as I can. And then, heading to the matrixy job to explore it. Then I get, after, I leave, I can really connect like psychically to record the videos, to bring in the information. But like I said, I've been laying low, kind of not doing much because my projects, like the course and like the book is already out. So I have like content quotes prepared for like the next 2 years.
We're coming down to the end, but I could talk to you all day long. I'm not kidding. Just because, and plus I've been watching you for the last few days. So it's like, all I do is listen to your amazing perspective.
Well, we can talk like off podcast, like please, like send DMs, audios, bunch of things. Like I would love to do that.
Okay. I love it. But what you were talking about, the veil burning, like can we kind of end on that, and then whatever else you want to talk about?
Sure. I think the veil really wraps it up. Like that video that I did wraps everything that we talked about, like the disclosure in the short term, people waking up, the split. So the veil burning, that's for the ones who are already awakened. Like the non-physical realms, they're every single day like more in front of our faces than before. So like 4 years ago, you could still stall and procrastinate and have like a week of spirituality. nothing would happen. You would just numb yourself like casually. These days, it's like those energies, the non-physical energy that would be beyond the veil, it's so in touch with us that
Yes.
there's no way that we can just stall, because that gives us anxiety to
Right.
keep up, holding problems. So that's what it is. Like there's no
Huh.
more separation there. I think it's more in front of people's faces. And even for the ones that are unawakened, topics like astrology or things that are more like
Yeah.
matrix that people can do memes. Well, people are still giving like validity to that more and more. So hopefully it'll keep growing, even though social media is a bit like stagnant right now for the spiritual topics. Like the system has been kind of, a lot of things were censored during this period of disclosure.
Right.
So hopefully the tendencies for us to keep progressing with that type of information. I feel like 2024, all of this, the mess, like the war between signs, it will kind of be more over, and the splits would be more clear.
But you see like more uncovering in the next few years.
Yeah, disclosure for people to wake up.
Yeah. I mean, I don't focus on that. So it's not that I ignore it, but do you watch the news? I don't focus on that. I don't know. When you say like the veil's burnt, like my veil's burnt, like it's like, I'm all in. I mean, it's constant, and I don't want to stop.
Oh yeah, but it's for the people who haven't had the awakening,
right?
That because I don't watch the news. Like I watch conspiracy theories and like all Telegram groups that are posting daily stuff about like exposing the news. That's what I watch, like exposing the news that are like on TV. So that would be like the real news, as I call it. That's what I watch.
Yes. You're right. Because if I was going to be interested in something, that would be what I would be wanting to watch. I was watching something. I'm going to interview him in a few weeks. His name's Sheldon. You might follow him too. I don't know. But he talks about the clouds.
What type of people you follow, like for me to follow more accounts.
But he talks about like the clouds and the government,
GMOs.
Yes, and all that.
Yeah,
and then,
that type of stuff. That's what I call I just summarize it in the conspiracy box.
Yeah.
People label it conspiracy and it's like all true.
Exactly. That's what, like I'll tell my husband something. Well, that sounds like the conspiracy. And I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah, I love that is the kind of news I like. Okay. My sweet friend that I am now will be in connection with forever.
Please do.
What else? What would be the one last thing you could end this beautiful conversation?
Okay, I already know what. Like the one last thing, and it's also something that I always tell like all of my clients, is that they didn't even need the session. Like all people need to do is to learn how to feel whatever they need to feel. And that's not something that you're gonna wait for a sign or synchronicity for. You book yourself moments to light your candle, to feel, so that you create that environment to feel. It's not like a magic's going to happen out of nowhere when you're still holding a lot of density. It's like a logical decision to care for yourself, to hit the gym, to book yourself moments. So for me, like that's the one thing, learn how to love and to feel. That's going to get you further into your own spiritual journey.
Yes, I love it. Yes. And on that note, let's see, we can find you on Instagram. Where can we find you? It's
okay. The Guides and Mari.
Guides at Mari.
Yeah, the Guides and Mari.
Okay. And then your website?
It's theguidesandmari.com.
Okay. And when she says Mari, it's Mari.
Yeah.
That's how you spell it.
Yeah, that's Mariana in Brazilian. People would say people always say like Mary.
Oh, right. Mari. Oh, Mari, it was so fun. I loved every minute.
Thank you for having me. Like, please stay in touch. Send anything. I'm so happy to just like talk.
I will. Me too. Anything to listen to you talk.
Cool.
Anyway, to think of before we end this, I just, to be 23 years old and to watch your journey and where it goes is just to think you started at this age, what age you started this journey at
19.
At 19, and you're 23 now. Amazing. And I have a 16-year-old and she's right behind you. So it'll be fun to watch. I just love to teach. Like I'll go pick her up in an hour and she'll ask me about you. And I love to share
Oh my
Um,
God, say hi.
because you're, close and you're a rainbow child like she
Mm,
is, both of my girls. And
mhm.
they, are experiencing life in such a different way than I did.
True,
And
there are different challenges for different generations and also different ages. People that are like 20 something, like people are like really freaking out.
really freaking out in their 20s, the ones that are in their 20s.
Yeah, because everything's very competitive these days. The matrix, all of the acceleration just causes this uncertainty so much. While like my parents, for example, there was less competition. Things were more like a safe shop that like if I study and I go to this school and then I do this, obviously like I'm gonna have success. And these days it's like social media, everything's so accelerated that there's no certainty. You have to be your own certainty, from within.
Right. Oh, for sure. I was talking to Presley this morning on the way to school, the 14-year-old, and she
Mm,
was saying, Mom, you're a Gen X. And she's like, do you want me to read your parenting style? And it was really into parenting. We're like volunteers at the school. It was
mhm,
all, really into like helping their child, excel in life.
mhm.
And then she was talking about she's a Gen Z. You're a Gen Z. I don't even know it. So she was
I,
just
yeah,
reading.
I don't. It's just Gen Z.
I don't know.
I don't know. Like I don't
I
keep
don't,
up so much
yeah, I
with
don't either. But anyway, it was interesting thinking of, because your parents are probably what, younger than me.
they are 50 something.
Yeah, well, same age. But
Mm,
yeah, so when, I had my children so much later, but,
mm,
having that experience of my childhood with no social media.
mm.
And then when Paige was born 16 years ago was when I had an iPhone. So, it's like,
I
I
was
didn't,
talking about my parents about that like lately, that they grew up like without social media. I was like, you know what? Like you're so lucky. Like that must
yeah.
have been so much fun.
It was. And I even
Oh,
told the girls today, I'm so glad I was raised in the Gen X,
mm,
whatever, because I got to do both. I had a childhood
mm,
with the freedom and no social pressure. I don't
mhm.
remember going to school and being bullied or, there was nothing like that. It was just, we did our sports, we went to school, we came home, we went and
I
played
still
till
want to
dark.
hear everything about your journey, like off the podcast, because
Yeah,
I
I
feel
know.
like you were like directing things towards me, but I want to know more about you too.
Oh, you're so sweet. Anyway, it was so fun. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.